Whether you're new to reading and you want some recommendations, or you're just in a bit of a slump and you need some new book recs, this is the video for you. Hello, welcome. My name is Claire. I hope you're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about the best books to get you into reading. I have some notes on my laptop here, so I'm going to be going over a couple different genres and a few books within each genre that I think are really good books to start with. So all of these books are fairly short, they're pretty fast-paced and easy to get through, and hopefully will lead you further into the world of books. That was very dramatic, sorry. So I'm going to start with fantasy, and the first series that I want to talk about is, well, it's two series technically, but I grouped them, which is Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. These series are set in the same universe, so that's why I put them together. They're set in the Grishaverse with the magical elite that are training to fight the Fold, which is this giant impenetrable darkness full of monsters that eat your flesh. So you can see why that's a problem. And it has split the nation of Ravka in half. So Shadow and Bone follows the main character Alina, who discovers she's a sun summoner, a very rare power that is only comparable to the mysterious Darkling who's leading the Grisha. Alina gets kind of whisked away to this palace to train with all these Grisha. She's very out of her element, and people are kind of hoping that she's going to save the world, so it's a lot of pressure to put on I don't know how old I think she's probably like 16, you know YA fantasy. This book is really fast-paced. It's 358 pages, so it's a pretty quick read, especially for a fantasy. It's a trilogy, so you can read the first one, and if you enjoy it, there's two more books that finish off Alina's story. It's definitely a high fantasy, but there isn't too much world building where it's kind of boring to get into. So I think it's a really good fantasy book to start with. And then there's also Six of Crows, which takes place directly after the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but it's with a completely different set of characters. So this focuses on 6 outcasts from Ketterdam, which is a city that's very different from Ravka. In Ketterdam, Grisha are hunted and often used as slaves, and this group of misfits get together to pull off a major heist in enemy territory. So Six of Crows is more character focused, it's less epic and fantastical, so I think it's good if you really enjoy reading more nuanced characters. Six of Crows does a really good job with that. This book is a little bit longer, it's 465 pages. It's a bit of a commitment, but it's a really fast read because everything moves really fast. The whole heist is super interesting to read about, and then the character stuff is like sprinkled in. So I really enjoyed both series, but Six of Crows to me is a bit more unique and captivating, so I do prefer Six of Crows. I read it in like 2 days, but Shadow and Bone is also really good, and I finished that really fast as well. There's also a Netflix series, if you don't know, that combines Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. It's called Shadow and Bone, and it's very good, and season 2 is coming out soon, so you should read it and then you can watch the show. Next fantasy book that I'm going to talk about, it's also a trilogy, and this is the Cruel Prince trilogy. So this book follows Jude, whose parents were murdered when she was 7, and then her and her sisters were taken by their murderer to the High Court of Fairy. So it's a fairy world, high fantasy again. Jude and her twin are the only humans in the court, and Jude wants desperately to fit in, even though most of the fae there despise mortals, especially Prince Cardan, the youngest son of the High King. So this book is full of complex and morally gray characters, and I thought it was really interesting because in this world, fae can't lie. So there's a lot of trickery of them trying to get around telling the truth, and it was a really fast-paced, really interesting book. The world building is good, but it's very simple, I think, so you don't really have to worry about getting through that to get to the story. It kind of just like throws you right in, which is really nice. This book is 370 pages, so it's not too long either, and it's low-key an enemies to lovers trope, but the romance is very minor in this trilogy. I think a lot of people tried to read this and didn't like it because they were like, it was sold to them as an enemies to lovers book. It's definitely a plot point. It takes a backseat to all the high court fairy war things. This one was also a really good fantasy book, I think, to start with. The next genre that I'm going to talk about is contemporary fiction. So I only have one book in this category, but it's a really good one, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And now if you've watched any other book content, you've probably heard about this book already, but it's definitely one that lives up to the hype. So this book follows Hollywood star Evelyn Hugo, who finally decides decides to share her life story after largely staying out of the spotlight for decades. She chooses an unknown reporter named Monique to tell her story and refuses to speak to anyone else, which is mysterious. So there's a little bit of mystery in there. Evelyn shares her experiences in the spotlight from the 50s to the 80s, as well as chronicling the 7 husbands that she had along the way, and finally revealing who her one true love was. So Monique finds out exactly why Evelyn wanted her and only her to write the story, and the way that their lives have intertwined. Although this book is contemporary fiction, there's a lot of twists. It's very fast-paced still, very easy to read. This book is 389 pages. It's a deep character study. It has beautiful storytelling, and most of it is Evelyn recounting her life in flashbacks. This book is definitely popular for a reason. The characters have a lot of depth. They're really interesting to read about, and I highly recommend picking this one up if you're interested in contemporary fiction. My next category is romance, which I have read quite a lot of, but first I'm gonna go make some tea, and I figured while I'm doing that I'll give you a little tour of my tea collection, and then you can pick up your favorite beverage as well, and we'll go through the rest of the books. So let's go do that. Welcome to my kitchen. Let's make some tea. So this is my tea cupboard. The top shelf has herbal teas and then some tools, and the bottom shelf has mainly just my David's tea collection. Most of the tea I own is from David's Tea. I have a ton of their matchas and then also a bunch of their different fruity teas. You can see here, these are the kind of the fruity ones that I have, and then in the other basket I have a couple different more sweet teas and then a bunch of their different matcha flavors. The vanilla matcha is one of my favorites, and strawberry matcha is also one of my favorites right now. Generally, when I'm making a matcha latte, I will add a pump of vanilla syrup and then make it with oat milk. I prefer my lattes iced, so that's what I'm doing for this one here. But if I'm using one of my fruity teas, or like the peach matcha is one that I really like to do this with, I will add lemonade to it instead. So next up we have romance. The first book that I recommend in romance is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So this is an adult romance. I'll have one next that's more of a teen YA romance. But this book is about the main character Nora, who's a cutthroat literary agent. She lives in New York and keeps losing all her boyfriends to the going off to a small town, falling in love with a local girl and staying there to build a family and help their family business trope. Very specific, but Nora's been unlucky. So Nora begrudgingly travels to a small town with her sister Libby for some bonding time. Her sister Libby is kind of the only person that breaks through her steel exterior, and in this small town, Nora continuously bumps into Charlie, a brooding editor from the city with whom she did not have a good first impression of. So this book is a grumpy trope, which I think is really fun. The grumpy sunshine is overrated. It's 377 pages. It's a super fast read. It's very lighthearted, I think, and there's such good tension. Like the flirting between these characters, incredible, amazing. Emily Henry never misses. But specifically in this book, I love the characters together. There's also realistic conflict. It's not just miscommunication and them losing their minds about it for 300 pages, which I appreciate. I think this is a really easy romance read, so if you're looking to get into the adult romance genre, anything by Emily Henry is good, but Book Lovers is my favorite. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Heartstopper, which you have also probably heard about if you've looked up any book videos in the past, or if you're already in the reading community. But this is a comic created by Alice Oseman. I'm a huge Alice Oseman fan, so if you watch my channel, you've heard me mention her multiple times. But this book, or comic, it is a comic. I already said that, but I'm just going to make that clear. This is a comic. This comic follows 14-year-old Charlie Spring as he navigates year 10 after being outed as gay to his all-boys school in year 9. He's seated next to Nick Nelson from year 11, who is known as the rugby king of the school and who everyone perceives to be the straightest man on earth. You can probably guess where this is going. As Charlie and Nick spend more and more time together, Charlie finds himself falling for Nick, and Nick finds himself questioning everything that he thought he knew about his sexuality. This is such a cute story. It focuses on queer characters, relationships, and joy. It's an idealistic love story that will make you believe in romance or feel really sad about your lack thereof. It's so cute. It's so well written. It tackles a lot of very serious themes, but always with the perspective that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's something that we don't get enough of in queer literature or any sort of queer media. So I highly recommend reading this. It's a super fast read because they're comics. You could fly through all 4 volumes of it in a day for sure. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. And again, this is also a Netflix show that is a very, very good adaptation. So you should watch that too if you want to read the comics or if you want to watch it first. That's what I did. I watched it on Netflix and I was like, I must read everything to do with this because it was so good. And the last genre that I'm going to be talking about today is thriller and mystery. So the first recommendation that I have is kind of a mixture of both. So this is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is also a trilogy. A lot of these are series that you can read. My dog is here. So A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is a trilogy, but the first book, honestly, I think could be read on its own. I can't remember if it ends on a cliffhanger because I did read it quite a while ago, but basically this story is about a murder that happened 5 years ago. A student was murdered by her boyfriend Sal before he committed suicide, and the whole town is certain that he did it, even when her body was never found. The story follows Pippa, who is determined to find out the truth because she does not think that Sal killed his girlfriend, and she makes this her final year project, enlisting the help of Sal's brother Ravi. Pip starts to uncover secrets someone is desperate to keep hidden, and there's lots of twists and turns, and it's honestly a little bit scary. And there is one unforgivable aspect of this book in my personal opinion, but it's fine. You'll know what I mean if you read the book. If you've read the book, you know what I mean. This book is 433 pages, but it's super fast paced. It's easy to fly through, and there's a side romance plot that's really cute, and we figure out clues with Pip throughout the story and feel fear when she does. I loved the first book. The rest of the series I was a little bit iffy about, but I still think it's really good to read. The third book, for the first half, actually terrified me. Like, I don't know if I've ever been that scared reading a thriller other than like a Stephen King book. So I highly recommend reading this, picking it up if you're interested in mystery or thriller novels. I believe this is a YA as well. And then the last book is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is fully a thriller. Well, I guess all thrillers have an element of mystery to it. This book follows Mr. and Mrs. Ray on a weekend getaway to a remote cabin to try and save their marriage, which weird location for that, but okay. Plot twist: the husband Adam has face blindness, so he doesn't recognize anyone ever, not even his wife, which adds a lot of tension to this book because whenever it's from his perspective, you have no idea who's around because he has no idea who's around. And this is told from this perspective of both the Wrights and then also from a mysterious third character, which again adds to the creepiness of the whole story. This book is only 294 pages. It's a super quick read. It's really, really fast paced. Once again, there's so many twists. The ending is absolutely unhinged, but like in a good way. I had to put this book down and like think about it for a little bit before I could finish it, because it's like your whole world turns upside down at like the final twist of this book. So it's a really great thriller to start with, I think. Really easy read, really fast read, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in thrillers. This is definitely more of an adult book, more adult subject matter, and it's really good. My back. So that is all of the books that I have for you today. Hopefully you found something that you're interested in reading, and if you would like more videos like this, you can subscribe down below. Let me know if you are into reading, what book got you back into reading. Mine was, I think I mentioned this in my last video, but The Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan really got me on the reading grind last year. Not sure why, but we're gonna take it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.